Hey, welcome to Morning Joe. Beautiful look at Times Square this morning. A lot to talk about today, of course. We're going to be still talking about the president's State of the Union address, some new approval numbers that have come out that show the president sitting very well, in not only in the latest NBC poll, but also an ABC News poll. Also, the Fed has an announcement yesterday. The Fed is going to keep interest rates near zero, at least through 2014, showing that this economy is going to be recovering for quite some time. And, of course, the war between Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich continues to rage in the new sunshines in state polls. It shows it's very close there, and it looks like, I think, actually, this is going to go down right to the very end. Welcome to Morning Joe. In New York, we've got Willie Geist and an entire panel to break things down. And also we have Howard Dean there. So hopefully Howard and I can scrap one or two times before the hour's out. I'm confident we can. Yeah, Willie, I saw at the end of Way Too Early, the president's still getting grief for the spilled milk joke.
Yeah, he is. We'll show you that later. Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart not pleased with the spilled milk joke. Also, Joe, your good friend Newt Gingrich having a little trouble with Ronald Reagan, the man he mentions every time he opens his mouth on the trail. We'll get to that in just a second. We've also got the great Wes Moore joining us this morning, the star of the new show Beyond Belief on the OWN network, just premiered on Tuesday. And then your name again?
Jorge Posada.
Mike Barnicle. Mike Barnicle also with us. Let's start with President Obama starting his day in Nevada, part of a 5-state tour to battleground territory for the 2012 election. He'll speak in Vegas this afternoon, where he'll lay out his plans for energy policy and job creation. Yesterday, the president visited a plant in Iowa, where he called on Congress to provide tax breaks to companies that hire American workers rather than sending jobs overseas. According to the latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, there are new signs, as Joe said, the president's message may be connecting with voters. The poll shows now 48% of Americans approve of the way President Obama is handling his job, his first positive rating in that poll in 7 months, where he hasn't been upside down. 48% approve, 46% disapprove. On the economy, 45% approve. That's up 6 points just from December. The poll also shows that 30% say the country is headed in the right direction. That's an 8-point improvement from December. 60% still say, though, the country is headed on the wrong track. Let's stop there for just 1 second. Joe, what do you read into those numbers?
Willie, again, this is pretty basic stuff. Over the past 3 years, we've been talking about how this president was hurt because he wasn't focusing enough on the economy. Distractions with whether it was cap and trade or whether it was a health care bill. We listed it time and time again, and his numbers, sure enough, went down. Now you have a contrast that this White House has to love. You've got the president talking about the economy, the State of the Union, running across America, going into factories, talking about how he's going to create new jobs, how he's going to stimulate growth, how he's going to build the manufacturing sector. And what are his competitors doing? They are deboning themselves in Florida, talking about lobbying for Freddie Mac, talking about paying 15% tax rates, talking about how Newt Gingrich compared Ronald Reagan to Neville Chamberlain. The contrast is striking. Now, this is inevitable. It happens in messy primaries when you run against incumbents. You could say the same thing about what happened in 1980 with Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. The same thing that happened in 2000 between John McCain and George W. Bush. But at the same time, it's not good for Republicans, and it is very good right now for the Obama White House. Of course, there are a lot of ups and downs in every campaign. Howard Dean, of course, can tell us about that since he's been inside of a campaign and knows it very well. But right now, you've got to say the optics really favor the president, at least for the next 2 or 3 months until Republicans sort things out on their side.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they do favor the president, but that right track, wrong track number still needs some serious improvement. I mean, the president's come a long way, but there's a long way to go. I do think, though, that they are damaging each other in the Republican primary. I have never seen a Republican primary like this. I don't think this is like the Reagan-Bush primary in 1980. This is just this kind of rhetoric. First of all, Newt's got a flamethrower everywhere he goes. He's always been like that. So the rhetoric is a whole lot different. And secondly, in all due respect, Governor Romney is not Governor Reagan in terms of his ability to take a punch and all that stuff. It demeans them both, and I don't think it's going to go away until they settle this.
Mike Barnicle, 48%, given all the economic data we have working against the president right now. That's a pretty good number.
Oh, I bet they're, they got the balloons out in the White House after they saw those poll numbers. Look, these polls are snapshots of the instant. So the Instamatic snapshot that this poll represents is clearly President Obama, as Joe indicates, basically campaigning now most of the week when he goes on these tours, factories, that he's got a campaign stump speech that he's giving as President of the United States, as you'd expect him to do. But the backdrop of the picture is, as Governor Dean just referred to, Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich. In my view, it's not just my view, but the view you pick up from anecdotally talking to a lot of people is that there's no way really to measure the damage that Newt Gingrich, specifically Newt Gingrich, has done to the Republican brand in the course of these primaries.
Joe, do you think this is unusually ugly, or is this what we see every 4 years in these presidential primaries?
I think this is what we see every 4 years in these presidential primaries, and we're talking about things getting ugly with Newt Gingrich. We also have to remember Newt Gingrich has taken a torrent of negative ads, so it's been very ugly going towards Gingrich and from Gingrich's campaign. I look at these numbers, though, and I want to put up again the president's approval rating, Willie, for the NBC News Wall Street Journal poll. He's sitting at 48%. Now, in past elections, we would usually say, well, the president needs 3 percentage points more to get to 51%. I suspect that's just not the case anymore. This president that won 53% last time probably will win and get reelected if he wins. Whoever wins will win with less than 50%. You're going to have America's elect coming in, regardless of what side they take from. I think they're going to take 3, 4, 5 percentage points at the very least. And what that means is that a president that won with 53% last time may only need 47, 48% of Americans supporting him this time to get reelected. I think the days of a two-person race between a Republican and a Democrat are gone. I think you're going to have to go back to what happened in 1992 with Clinton, Bush, and Perot to see what elections are going to be looking like for the rest of our lifetimes.
And Wes, what about the optics here that we've been talking about this morning? The president gives a soaring speech inside that chamber on Tuesday night, the State of the Union, talking about creating jobs, bringing manufacturing back. And then in the state of Florida, you have them going at it over Ronald Reagan, immigration, nitpicking at each other about these small issues. Good for now for the president.
It's great for now for the president. I think what the president also is trying to do is reinforce a lot of the messages that happen from the State of the Union, where it's talking about manufacturing or American energy. I think also what we're seeing with the approval rating numbers, and just going back to something that Barnicle was talking about, is before, when people asked about the president's favorability ratings, a lot of it was on this objective comparison, where it's like, looking at where I am, how do I think about where the president is? Now that we've started to see the Republican part and the Republican field really start to come together, and it looks like we have these two leading candidates, now it's not simply just looking at it from an abstract perspective. Now they're looking at it as him versus the alternative. And that's why all these long, drawn-out Republican arguments and debates, and as we're watching Mitt Romney or Newt Gingrich every day kind of putting together these various gaffes, people are now looking at the job of the president and saying, you know what? He's actually doing better than I thought. And that's also one of the reasons why I think you're seeing these numbers start to creep.
Well, let's look at some of the back and forth in Florida. Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich, they get one last chance. Tonight, they're going to debate one more time before Tuesday's Florida primary. The latest CNN poll shows the two in a statistical tie in Florida. CNN Time poll, Mark Halpern would make me say. Romney is down 7 points from last week. Gingrich up 16 points. Rick Santorum and Ron Paul back by more than 20 points. When it comes, though, to head-to-head matchups in the general, this is a new Suffolk University poll inside the state of Florida. Shows Mitt Romney with a 5-point lead over President Obama. But when you flip that and put in Newt Gingrich, President Obama leads by 9 percentage points, Joe, and that tells you a lot.
Well, it certainly does, and it's not to go back and look at polls taken in 1995, and Newt Gingrich had a 27% approval rating nationwide, a 60% disapproval rating nationwide. On the eve of the South Carolina primary, the PPP polls and the NBC News Wall Street Journal polls that were all out that week showed Newt Gingrich around the same, 27-28% approval rating nationwide in 2012, 60% disapproval rating nationwide. He is a guy that a lot of people in the base love because of what he did in 1994, because he took a party from minority status to majority status for the first time in a generation. And so there are people that feel good about him. He still can't move middle America. But, you know, Willie, I look at those Florida numbers, and we see actually a self-correction here. Mitt Romney actually has stopped the bleeding. It looks like that race is tied up. And I'm just saying, as a Floridian, it seems like a Romney state to me. As far as the Republican Party goes, it's not as conservative as South Carolina. It is a massive state. It's more like a nation than a state. And I think Florida may just be the firewall that Romney needs. If he loses in Florida, that says a lot. That shows that Gingrich is continuing to beat against the tide. And certainly the $5-6 million that he's just gotten into a super PAC is going to help him possibly do that. But I still have to give the slight edge to Romney moving forward.
Governor Dean, at the core of Mitt Romney's argument is that he's the more electable of the candidates. Is he right? Can Newt Gingrich win a general election against President Obama?
I think it's very tough for Newt Gingrich to win a general election. And electability does matter. It doesn't matter in the very conservative, ideologically based states like South Carolina, but it does matter in Florida. I think Joe's right about this. I think these numbers are good for Romney. He really got his clock clean in South Carolina, both kind of momentum-wise and numbers-wise, and he appears to be coming back. But, you know, anything can happen. We got 4 days for this thing, so anything can happen.
And that's coming from Howard Dean. You know anything
Yes,
can
I know
happen.
anything can
Yes, you
happen.
do. All right.